What's going on with a bunch of crazed dogs?
Camera. How about them Giants? How about them Giants? How about them Giants?
Woo! What's happening, people? Yep, you know it. It's another episode of Giants Rush. We're definitely gonna get that drop one of these days from the Road Warrior, where it's like Rush, right? I know Shawn had it on his phone. We need to get that. But thanks for tuning in to Giants Rush every Monday. 50, I say 52. Sounds better, right? 50 weeks of the year. We're here talking Giants football. There's always a lot to talk about, except it gets a little thin around this time of year, but we can always figure out something, have some fun. I got Shawn here. I got Chris here. We're going to talk some This Could Happen, right? Our new segment. We're going to talk 2-minute drill at the end of the show. I know you guys are probably going to be jumping into the playoff game today, which I think kicks off at 8 o'clock. Maybe you guys can put that on the background. I don't know if any of you guys have some skin in the game. A lot of good football this last couple days. Let's bring in the guys. Let me see if I could even, you know what? Zach's not here today, so I'm at a loss. Wait a minute. I have it here somewhere. Hang on. Ready? I think this will work. And here.
And here we go.
Boom. Woo. What's up?
You did it. All right. Nice job. Nailed the intro. Nailed it.
Yep. I forgot how to do it. Oh, and here's mine.
It's good to be the king.
Damn right it's good to be the king. So what's up, dude? It's like a full week of off season, right? And post-holiday stuff. We're kind of starting to groove into some storylines. We're trying to be super positive over here at Giants Rush. So what are you taking anything away for over the last couple days, like in Giantville that's positive?
That's positive. Listen, it's the off season, so free agency and draft, like that's a lot to be positive about. I'm excited to see what they're gonna do, who they're gonna add, and how they're gonna make this team better. So there's my positivity.
Yeah, no doubt. It is fun. Draft fun, free agency's fun. Seeing that like we're kind of settling in on the coaching staffs, and we're gonna chop it up. But that means it's time to bring in.
He is the man. Well, the captain toughen up is over here and giving themselves a beer bath.
What's up?
Hey, Craig. Hey, Shawn. Everybody.
What's up, Chris? Love that intro.
Another episode of Giants Rush where, we don't have to talk about a loss, gentlemen. It's like, how cool is it when we have Giants Rush and we're not recapping a loss?
It's awesome.
Beautiful thing. Beautiful.
Let's see who's oh wow, you guys are already piling on the room waiting for me. I see Daniel, I see NYG 8044. That's a mouthful. Like it. Peace is here. What do you mean? Look at me getting all fancy. Oh yeah, because I'm running the board again. Peace. Yeah, because Zach is, I don't know where Zach is. I see Miles. I got a couple of you guys coming in here. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're talking Giants football. Guys, the biggest news that hit is, of course, we know Shane and Dave's are here, but we were I was pretty certain that Bowen would be the sacrificial lamb with do right. I think that almost every playmaker that we do have on the defensive side disappeared outside of Dexter Lawrence. Pinnock had a terrible year. Banks did. Okereke, McFadden, Banks, who am I missing? Belton. All these guys on the defense just magically disappeared. So, Chris, I'll chuck it right over to you. Like, what was your thought of Bowen potentially coming back, at least for now, right? Mm-hmm. We do know that Mike Vrabel is going to be locking in with the Pats, so he might reach out and say, hey, I'd like to interview him, right, and bring him over. Maybe that can happen. What's your thought on the Bowen thing?
Yeah, that was the thought. And after the comment by Mara, you really thought that was a hint that some changes would have to be made on the staff. But it looks like Vrabel maybe even going in a different direction other than Bowen. And now you ask yourself, because there are defensive coordinators out there like Lou Anarumo, but is it a matter of the optics, and also how about putting the feelers out there? Maybe with a lame duck coach, Shane and Dable 1 foot out the door, maybe it's not a very enticing job knowing that you could be gone as well in a year.
Yeah, that's interesting take, right? And again, like I will say, and we'll get more.
Craig, if I can say one more thing, maybe they've read the room, right? Maybe Dable's read the room and say, you know what, we're better off with Bowen because putting the feelers out there. If I were to make a move, maybe it's just not. It's just not a lot of talk about anybody wanting to come to the Giants.
Well, okay. Again, and it's an interesting take because there are some takes out there like that. I just don't think that stuff's quite real. I think it's like there's some of it that's got validity to it, right? But I mean, this is the NFL. There's only 32 jobs, right? I mean, and the NFL is a life-changing opportunity, right? Like there are teams, 12 of them, in fact, that have never won a Super Bowl, and I'm pretty sure they have a full staff every single year. Right. So I can't put too much stock in the fact that nobody wants to come here. I'm sure a big splashy name may not want to come here, but there are some guys that I'm sure that would come here if had the opportunity. However, yes, we will, and we'll get in a little bit of that in a second on my second point of I think this new setup with the NFL has to wait for playoffs to end and all that stuff is hurting a lot of teams. I think the Giants right now, the best move they can make tomorrow, which they won't, of course, is to give Dabes and Shane an additional year just to shut all that up. If they're not going to have opportunity, right, because everybody's watching their own back, then just give Dabes an extra year. I mean, it's on Pate napkin. It's on a bar napkin anyway, right? Just give him an extra year. Give Shane an extra year, right? If that's going to allow them to have another window, a longer window. Shawn,
I mean, they're here through 2026 anyway, so it's not like they're not under contract for 2 more years. So
correct. I know, but everybody's blowing this up that they're dead in the water. Nobody wants to come. Like I think that's a lot of media hype. I mean, yes, it is out there that, like, you go there next year, then they're in the last year of their contract, all that stuff. But, like, I don't know, Shawn. It's an NFL gig, and it's life-changing. I'm pretty sure if they wanted to find someone that could.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. You're right. I mean, coaches are going to take an opportunity when they need to take an opportunity. I just think it's hard to use Bowen as the scapegoat when the offense was as bad as it was. Like, how does that make you look? Yes, it's part of optics, but if you look at that team, defense was not the issue. That we weren't happy with it. I get it, but defense was not the issue this year by any stretch of imagination. Defense is not why we lost games this year. They were giving up 21 points a game. Their bend don't break, but how is Dable? How's that going to? I think that's going to look worse to the league if he fires his defensive coordinator when it was clear that offense was the biggest problem, with this team. So, and again,
but Shawn, I'd say the offense has been a problem for the last 10 years. It wasn't just 1 year. Like, this has been an ongoing issue. So it's kind of, we went into the season knowing that scoring points has been a problem.
Yes.
Defense was supposed to be, something that was going to hold the games together. And that didn't hold true.
Yeah.
But they did hold it together. That's the thing. They were giving up 21 points a game before all of the injuries happened. That 21 points given up, that's good enough to win in this league if your offense scores point. You can't expect the defense. I mean, we got to pitch shutouts every game. Like, it's hard to do in this league, but I mean, again, I get it. We lost the game where we gave up 6 field goals and lost the game. Didn't give up a touchdown and we lost the game.
Those are out there. What he's saying, and I'm actually in 1,000% agreement with him. What he's saying is the team was going to be, relying on the defense because the offense is constantly a work in progress, and just doing enough isn't good enough. Like, everyone outside of Dexter Lawrence put in and I actually think Burns had a pretty good year. I think outside of Dexter Lawrence and Burns, everyone had a subpar year. They did just enough to get a paycheck. They did just enough to get it, to get to the next week of the schedule. Like, there was nothing dynamic. There was nothing exciting. There's nothing to hang your hat on, to the point of where, like, now you have more problems, right? Like, it was like, let's fix the offense. The offense is holding us back. Okay, you gave up 21 points. But again, like, there's a dynamic to the teams that you play, the mistakes that the other team makes. All he's trying to say is the defense did nothing to rise to the occasion. They did nothing to say, we're here and we're playing hard. They did the bare minimum at everything they could possibly do. And that's not good enough when you're a new DC. Like, you're a new DC. You should be winding these dudes up and saying, we're going to lose, but we are going to punch you in the mouth. And all they got was, we're not going to let you score too many. Like, it's not Giants football, and it's not good enough.
Yeah, I think they played a lot better than people realize, especially the first 8 to 10 games. And that's kind of thing. And I'm not advocating for Bowen to come back, but I think he's getting a raw deal when you look at how bad. I mean, here's the thing. They came out, they did do some great things. When you look at the rankings, and yes, rankings matter to me because we looked at that when it came to Wink. They were higher ranked, significantly higher ranked in every category defensively than they were under Wink. The two areas where they weren't was turnovers, which is a big one. I get that. And run defense, but they were only 2 spots lower than what Wink was. Wink was horrendous, and Wink gave up 3rd and longs all the time as well. So they were an improvement. It's hard. You start losing, it is hard to be motivated as a defense when you know that offense isn't going to do anything, and you know the quarterback play is bad. And players know that. They see that. And again, I'm not advocating for Bowen to stay, but I think he did a lot better than people realize.
That's fair enough. I don't see it. For me personally, I mean, Dexter Lawrence was the heart and soul of the defense. I mean, the guy led the team in sacks. Are you telling me that you cannot get Brian Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau to get 9 sacks? I mean, to me, it's Chris. Are you not bothered by that at all? That this guy can't come up and just play great football at one game where you were like, man, okay, there's something to rest on here.
I look at 3 players. I look at Pinnock, I look at Okereke, and I do look at Thibodeau. I feel like those guys regressed. And I want to say Bobby Okereke regressed a lot. I mean, he still had almost 100 tackles and he was out. But you just didn't see the flash plays like you did last year. Some difference-making plays. Same thing with Pinnock. And I don't know what happened with Pinnock. I know he takes bad angles, but you saw Pinnock last year really be utilized in a little bit of a different way on the blitz and some different things where he kind of he just regressed. And we saw that with Banks, right? I didn't mention Banks, but Banks was the big regression. A lot more zone, should be been probably a lot more man. But I just feel like the strength of the team is not being utilized, and we're kind of going, a different way. What Bowen wants to do in his system.
A couple things there, though, too. I'll say with Pinnock. Pinnock had McKinney, so Pinnock could be used in the Newman role was this year. So now we see that Pinnock was not good with his bad angles, all those things. That's part of why he regressed. The other thing is when you look at, first year DCs, it takes time for players to get adjusted. Okereke said that when he first came and played under Wink, it took him 6-7 games to get used to that system. And Wink in year 1, that defense wasn't solid. They were better in year 2 with the turnovers. So I think that's part of it as well. And again, you can't play. If you're going to play, you can't play man coverage based on one guy, Banks. And Banks was clearly a press man guy and couldn't play zone. So those are just, again, if Bowen goes, he goes. But I also think getting a second year and a lot of the defensive guys were wanting him back because they wanted that continuity and not having another D coordinator again, learning a new system, going through the growing pains that again. So maybe year 2 with a year under their belt, that system gets better.
I want to throw this up here because I think Rob is spot on. Like, it's just about situational football. I mean, look, we had Carl Banks on 3 weeks ago. He said it. He's been saying it for 3 weeks that it shouldn't take 7 weeks to make an adjustment. Like, this guy not only doesn't make in-game adjustments, he literally watches his defense get their ass whooped, play out, and nothing changes. And then the next week, you almost feel like he just basically hands over the game plan from last week. Like there is just no, and listen, and I'm not advocating towards Wink, and I don't think anyone's advocating for Wink. You know, he turned out to be an old crusty scumbag. But you
And
know
he gave
what?
up a lot of third and longs. People forget that. Yeah, he got
No,
turnovers, but there was a lot of third and longs that he gave up because he blitzed and he left his cornerbacks on an island. I mean, there's a ton of third and longs that Wink gave up. And I think people forget that.
Well, you know, to Craig's point, Shawn, it all looks the same. I think it all looks the same. And sometimes, the sometimes it hits, right? I mean, sometimes it works out, but it seems like it just all looks the same week in and week out. I don't want to compare to Belichick, but when Belichick runs a defense, it just looks different depending on the opponent. It always looks different, the way the scheme is and the way he's doing things. And it just seemed very, very elementary every week. Not elementary. It just seemed the same. Nothing seemed to be different.
Actually, I think elementary is a pretty good term for it. Hey, look, Spartan Mike's got a great point. Spartan Mike's, listening from home. Spags in 07 had a similar story, bad early, but fixed it by week 5. They became an entirely different defense. Like sometimes, Shawn, this is kind of my issue with today's NFL. Like you don't want to press players because they get mad or they get triggered or you don't want to call anyone out. Nobody gets to be benched. I mean, like, literally, your defensive coordinator should be like, I need more from you. And that's not happening. No one's being accountable.
He benched Banks for lack of effort.
One game, and he came back and he sucked the next game too. I mean,
he didn't play as much going on. I also think the injuries, like again, when the injuries started happening, they started sitting players. I think that's when the defense kind of. But then he had all those young guys coming in and playing, and they played well. They played with aggression. So I think where I'm going to fault him is not getting the young guys in there more who were hungry and had more fight than some of the veterans or the older guys. And I think there's an issue between the guys that were here before Joe Shane and the guys that are here with Joe Shane. And that's my issue with Bowen. Play more of those guys who came in like a Chapman and Casey Rogers and those other guys who actually lit a fire under that defense for a couple weeks. And then the starters came back. And we see what happened. It was kind of like, that lack of fire was there. So that's where I'm going to fault him. Play those guys that are young and hungry and are talented enough to be on that field. Make the adjustments when it comes to personnel. But that goes as a team. Like I had the same complaints about, Dave's as well. Like it makes zero sense why they keep letting guys play and not putting other guys in. So I think that's a whole unit type thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I just keep going back to stop feeling sorry for these guys or working their worried about their egos. Like I'll give you an example. This is very there's probably a couple defensive coordinators that could pull it off, and there's probably a lot that can't. But when Okereke went down, right, and they slid McFadden over into his spot, McFadden had his best 2 games, right? So then you start wondering, maybe they're just out of position in this defense. Maybe Okereke should be playing where McFadden plays. And maybe McFadden should be playing where Okereke plays. Like you should be able to, and that's just an example, but you should be able to identify at the 7th week of the season that something else needs to change. You know what? Pinnock, like you said, takes terrible angles week in and week out. Yes, you could bench him. Maybe you just need him to make a play and put him out there on the edge and let him, safety blitz, right? Or, maybe you need to just do it. When you are a 3-win team, there's nothing to lose. So why am I going at this the same way every week? Why does it take 12 games to get Belton on the field or Chapman on the field? Why are we not running a NASCAR? Why is not Simmons, Burns, and Tibbs in the game at the same time and Burns and Tibbs on the same side? There's no thought, and there's no one that can convince me any different that this guy is putting any extra in to win games. It just feels like an ego. This is my D. This is how I run it. Take it or leave it. And that's why I wanted him gone, because he's not. And I'll put a bow on my soapbox, but he's not in touch with the personnel that he has. He just isn't. Because
I don't disagree with you.
I think more situational strategy, like you're saying, get the guys on the field at one time. Thibodeau, Aziz when he was healthy, no need to rotate some of them out, but get them in the on the field at the same time. And I think to your point, Joker, Shawn, is lost my train of thought. Is, you know, when you had Casey Rogers and Jordan Riley, I just don't think they got the playing time in the beginning. And you're right. I think once they started to be in the rotation more, you saw them start to develop and play better. So I think, you know, those guys need to be in the rotation even more early on in the season and not waiting till the end when things are over. And now you see these guys make some progress. So, you know, especially at defensive tackle, we needed these guys in rotation because we didn't have anybody next to Dexter.
And then when Dexter went down, what did they do? You finally were like, well, let's put the young kids in there. We're like, well, come on, man. Like, get them in the game. Like, I'll give you a great example. You, Shawn, you like Flott. I don't hate Flott. He's very small. Why not, again, you're a 3-win team. If you're telling me right now that Tay Banks can do nothing but play press, that he can't do anything else, then that's a shame thing. They should have never drafted him, because you like Flott, right? And you like Phillips, which we all love. At some time, I'm going to go in the game and I'm going to go like this. Flott, you're now the 1. Phillips, you're now the 2. Banks, you're moving a slot. Sometimes you got to stop worrying about their egos and you got to make a change, because you just went at it the same every week. And that's my issue with Bowen. Like, dude, if it doesn't seem like you're coaching to save your job, it doesn't look like you're doing anything different on a week basis. I mean, I'm sorry. On paper, Isaiah Simmons, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Brian Burns should all be 10-sack guys. Simmons can't get on the field. Thibodeau is nowhere to be found. He's definitely a little bit one-dimensional. Then scheme around it. The guy is look.
He missed 5 games too. He missed 5 games. Tibbs missed 5 games.
I'm not talking about full season numbers. I'm just saying.
I think at a certain point they just stopped, because I really do believe they wanted to get a higher draft pick at one point, and they just stopped because they knew once they made that move on from Jones, they just stopped doing things and they were just going to go out and play. I know that's bad, but I do believe that's what it was. And I think the only reason they beat the Colts was because the fire was out there. The articles were put out there that Dabbs was going to be let go and Shane was going to be kept. And Dabbs was like, all right, I'm going to show you guys. Like,
but Craig, Shawn, that's a mark against Bowen. If Bowen's going to, you know, not play his guys, I mean, that doesn't help his cause for getting another job either.
Again, why would he be looking for another job? He's here as a defensive coordinator. If Dabbs said, because the word out there now is Dabbs said they were going to be back, Bowen was going to be back. So
I'm saying before that,
about his job.
Yeah, before that, he was.
I'm saying before that, you know, he's obviously thinking, well, my defense has got to, you know, pick it up here, and I have to do a better job, because if I'm going to work in this league, I need to show out, or when I if I get fired, I may not get another job. So it'd be hard for me to believe that Bowen would be willing to just, you know, tank it on his end and just kind of go through the motions.
I'm not saying tank it, but again, you had all those undrafted free agents that were out there. You had 4th and 5th stringers coming out at some point.
We had a lot of injuries. There was so many injuries though late in the season.
And they played better when those guys come in. But the other thing, and again, you look at the rankings, they were 6th in pass defense. They were in the top 15 in all their categories. The only place, and they were giving up 21 points a game. That was like 10th in the league. The defense was not. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. The defense was not bad. Like, we make it seem like they were giving up all these points and a shit ton of points every game. They weren't. And then also imagine when your offense is as bad as it is, how often that you are on the field and how much you're on the field. And then you do lose that motivation when it happens there. My only point again is if you're only giving up 21 points a game on average, that is more than enough. If you're top 10 or top 15 in the league.
Is it 21? I thought it was 24. Is it 21? I thought it was
24. Before all the injuries happened, they were giving up 21 points a game. So before Jones was let go, before the injuries happened, they were only giving up 21 points a game. So
well, you know, and the passing yards might be a little skewed, Shawn. And the reason I say that is when teams are running the ball down your throat, gaining 150, 175 yards a game, they don't have to throw a million passing yards. They just run it. They just keep killing you with the running game. But
they were passing.
Yeah. I'll say the Giants can't score. Yeah.
I know. I get it. The attempts were there, though. Teams were still making the same amount of attempts that they were Yeah, again, I've done all that research. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. The Ravens are dead last in pass defense and first in run defense. So, I mean, you look at those things there, so that tells you some stuff. But again, when you look at where
and on the
teams were
flip side
throwing-
of that, Craig, I mean, Shawn, I'd like to know how many points the Baltimore was up in those games where teams are throwing the ball as well. So that could be a little skewed where last in pass defense, they did beat quite a bunch of teams by a few touchdowns where teams are throwing the ball and they're playing a little softer zone maybe.
Yeah, they didn't have that many blowouts.
It was
Yeah, it's 24. It is.
Okay.
I'm talking about when it mattered and before the injuries happened.
Okay.
Like before Jones
still
went
don't-
out, they
I
were
still
giving up
don't think
21
Bowen-
points a game.
I'm not giving Bowen a pass, whether it was game 9 or game 17. Like, guy put no effort forth to make a difference. I just don't care.
You know what it is, guys? I think Wink, and I think you're right to a point, Shawn, where I don't think Wink was that much better than Bowen, if not. But he put his stamp on a few games, and I think a few of those games, obviously, was the Baltimore game against his ex-team, where the Giants, were the only team to beat the Baltimore in the NFC East, right? The only game they lost up until this year. But I think he had a few more statement games, and maybe that's why we inflate the view on Wink because of those statement wins, where Bowen's kind of hasn't really had that statement win. I mean, they won 3 games. There were no statement wins.
Yeah, like there's one day, those games where you're like, we lost, but we punched them in the mouth. They know who they played today. I'm like, God, it's got to be. It's just so soft. And they played a crappy schedule. And you played a bunch of weak teams that you should have beat the shit out of. Like, again, it is what it is. I'm just making the point that I don't know who would replace him, but and we'll get to that even in the speed round or the 2-minute drill. But I'm going out and telling you flat out right now, if Bowen comes back 100% and there's no changes to this staff, they better win the NFC East, because that's what they're telling you. They're telling you right now, and you can write it down, bookmark it, do whatever you got to do. If there's no changes to this staff and this staff comes back whole, just like it is, they're saying this: we are good enough that we're going to win the NFC East, and you could bank on it, because they're not thinking they need to make any changes.
Let me ask you guys this. If Dable wasn't the head coach and he was just the offensive coordinator, does he get fired?
Wait, say that again.
If Dable was not the head coach and it was somebody else, but he was the offensive coordinator running this offense for the last 2 years or 3 years, would he have been fired at the end of this season?
Man, so your OC goes to the playoffs in 22. Then his quarterback blows his knee in 2023, and the GM gave him no quarterback to back it up. In 2024, your quarterback's horrible, and you cut him in mid-year? Probably not.
I think he would have been fired if he was just the OC, Dable, and I think maybe even more so than Bowen.
Interesting. It's hard because your quarterback regressed from 22. What's not
right?
Me, it's not the play calling. It's the play of the quarterback, and I don't know.
All right, wait, hang on. How about this?
That's a hypothetical.
Chris, it's a
good question, though, Chris.
It's a great question. Think about this: 2 different buckets, right? When I look at the offense, it's Malik Neighbors, right? Everyone, Thomas went down. Illuminor had to move. You got 2 average tight ends. You got a overachieving running back. You got a couple nice brawlers on the line, but not studs. And then on the defense side, you got the best defensive tackle in the game. You got a top 10 outside linebacker. You got a cornerback that's supposed to be a top 10 corner, right? You got a rookie safety that's supposed to be a ball hawk. And you got a borderline perennial Pro Bowl middle linebacker, and nothing happened. So when I look at Dable as the offensive coordinator, what the heck did he have to work with? His quarterback was literally gone for a year and a half. He's got nothing. There's the offense is barren. The defense has 5 or 6 major playmakers, and Bowen was like this. I don't know what to do with them. I'd have been blitzing Kayvon Thibodeau with stunts, one-on-one with the tackle every single play. No inside stuff. We already know his best pass rush move is an inside pass rush rip. And instead, they got him bull rushing on the outside. over and over and over. Not one time do they pull him off the field and sit him down and be like, dude, until you figure out how to add a pass rush move, you serve me no purpose. You see Brian Burns run down the line and make a tackle from behind like LT used to do. You don't see that out of Tibbs. You got to be like, dude, Bowen's got to coach them up.
I need someone to bring it out of Tibbs because no DC here has brought it out of Tibbs. It's been the same thing for him every year. So, I mean, listen, he's definitely better than that's not going to be his style, and that's fine. I mean, not everybody's going to be that way. Like, I think we expected him to be like a Micah Parsons because of where he was drafted. That's not his style. I think he can be better. He's about to go into year 4. He did have 11.5 sacks year 2. So, I mean, that's really good. And the system that doesn't go with edge, I just think that someone's got to bring it out of him. And I'm hoping that year 4, because again, Dexter Lawrence didn't become Dexter Lawrence until year 4. Again, I'm not saying Tibbs is going to be Dexter Lawrence, but it took Dexter Lawrence 4 years to get where he needed to be.
It's harder to be the man at D tackle than it is outside linebacker. It's just different. But I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But again, I'm not advocating for Bowen to stay. Let me just be clear about that. I'm just saying I think he gets way more hate than he should, and he was better than what he is. And the main problem we know, and I know we don't want to talk about all the time, but the main problem was the offense. So
he's a bore fest, man.
Agreed.
Let's Chris, are you prepared for the next segment here, my friend?
I have a little bit.
All right, here we go. So we're gonna, in the theory of bringing something new to the table in 2025, we want to bring you like things that are real, no hypotheticals, things that are real. So we created a new segment called "This Can Happen." Like, it's real. It's got data. It's got stats. These are things that should happen, and it's called "This Can Happen." And let's show. And I have something cool in here that looks like this. All right. So, Chris, in the spirit of this can happen, right? I'm thinking like tell folks, tell the people something that can happen. Like it just like not hypothetical. Just what? Give me something that can happen this year to make us better.
Nuts and bolts, and I don't know how many people will be happy about it, but Kirk Cousins, currently the backup. Michael Penix will be the starting quarterback going into next year. The problem is the salary for Kirk Cousins. However, the Falcons next year, if they cut Kirk Cousins prior to the start of the 2025 league year, which is in March, they would have a $65 million hit in dead money. However, if they trade him, the $27.5 million would be transferred to the new team, which maybe would be the Giants. And then the Falcons would just be responsible for $37.5 million, which I'd have to check, but I believe you can spread that over 2 years. So because normally with the cap hit, you can spread it over 2 years and break it up. I'm not on a trade. I'm not sure if that's the same, type of deal, but that could be noteworthy, to keep an eye on. The Falcons did come out and said, no, we're happy with Kirk Cousins as our backup, but they're playing hardball. They're not going to let anybody know that he's on the hook and they're looking to trade. But I would keep an eye on this as we get into March. The combine comes up in February. That's when agents and GMs are talking, and there's general managers, obviously GMs and agents. So who knows? This could be something that could be in the works. Listen, it's an upgrade, right? Whether you like Kirk Cousins or not. 2 years ago, he had a pretty good year, throwing for 20-something touchdown passes before his injury. So it's hard to me think he fell off this far, this fast. He is coming off the Achilles. So listen, it's a big step up from Daniel Jones as a stopgap bridge, no matter who you take in the draft.
Well, that was awesome because that can happen. And I'll also say a couple of things that gets ignored, right? First thing is that you just talked about $27 million being spread over 2 years. That's $13 million a year. That is more than acceptable to bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins. That's good to know. You're not eating 27 in year one. You're spreading it over 2. That's $13 million a year. That's fantastic. Second thing is he's coming off an Achilles surgery, as you mentioned. He's probably not 100% healthy, right? But as a guy coming off surgery at the 8,
yeah, Craig, I don't know if you said it's $27.5 million. The Giants would be responsible for.
Yes, spread over 2 years.
Okay.
Right?
No, No, that would be the base salary. The 2 years would be on the Falcons for the remaining of the 37 and a half. I believe you could split that up into 2 years because that would be their hit.
Thank you for clarifying. So at the 6-month period, he came back, went to camp. He probably didn't do a lot, right? But what's interesting is like we're talking, we're I don't know if we think we're spoiled or what, but like we haven't had a good quarterback room in 6 years. Here's a guy who had Achilles tendon surgery and won 7 games. That's more than we've won in the last 2 years combined. Okay. Then the guy threw because again, you could see he had his highest interception total of his career at 8. He threw 18 touchdown passes. He threw 18 interceptions. Not good. We know that. But that statistically, the body of work, that's not his MO. He doesn't have, he's never an 18 interception type of guy. Like you said, he throws 27 to 30 touchdowns. Remember, he's been throwing to Jefferson, for years. He's got multi 3,000, 4,000 yard years, right? So even though he's older, right, he's not going to throw a lot of picks. He's definitely going to make Malik Neighbors happy as hell, because if our patchwork quarterbacks, Chris, can put together 1,000-yard season for Malik, I'm sure Kirk Cousins could get him to 13, 14, 1,500 receiving and 10 to 15 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
Because Malik's that good, and Kirk is a very, like I said, he's a very stable kind of guy. And if they draft a guy, not a bad guy to learn from. Think about all the great receivers he's thrown to, right, over the last 7 years. I think he's a perfect gap. I had this debate a little bit with Dash this week, and I got to give him credit. I said, he said he wanted Brown to take over the GM spot from Shane, right? And I said, well, that guy's the right-hand man to the general manager. Why would you want him to take over? He's part of the regime making the decisions you don't like. And I got to give Dash credit, because he was like, hey, well, Craig, he was also part of Philadelphia, helping them make decisions and look at those great decisions, right? So I said, okay, great point. Well, then why are we ignoring what Kirk Cousins did prior to being with Atlanta? Like, what's all we're looking at? If I'm only looking at what Brandon Brown. Yeah, exactly. Like too many B's. Like if I'm only looking at the body of work with the Giants, I was like, he made such a great point. I'm like, it's a great point. He did make great decisions and did help, Howie Roseman build those successful Eagles teams. So why are we just saying Kirk Cousins is washed and he's done? Because look at the great things he's did, with Jefferson. And before that, he had, was it McLaren? I guess I'm trying to think who was the big receiver he had in Dotson. I'm trying to think who was those commander wide receivers. Like Kirk Cousins can play ball.
He had
right?
Diggs. He had Diggs early on too. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He had Diggs and he had Deshaun Jackson.
Right. I mean, the last 2 years, 18 touchdowns, and he had an injury in 23. And then before that, it was 35, 33, 29, 26 back in 2019. So it's hard to imagine he's fallen off that much. I'm going to chalk this up to, an injury-plagued year in 23. And then this year, it's a year removed from the Achilles.
Love it. And like I said, folks, this can happen, right? It's not as bad. Money's getting deferred over 2 years. 27 million.
And you could probably convert that into a signing bonus, a lot of it, and your salary even comes down less, and you work it out on the back end. So this could be a stopgap for a couple of years. The nice part is it's a trade, right? So he doesn't have to agree to it. I don't believe he has a no trade. So, it could be something where, you're not fighting a bunch of other teams that are looking for Kirk Cousins. Maybe the Browns, right? Browns could be something out there because of the relationship with Stefanski from a couple of years ago. But we'll see.
I like it. I like it. And like I said, it's just positive, man. We're trying to be positive, like what we could do. And overall, I think Kirk Cousins is a great guy to teach a young QB. Shawn, I had a conversation today with someone about the same thing, the Cousins thing, the Carr thing, the Russell Wilson thing, and he asked me why I didn't like Jameis Winston. And I just said, hey, look, here's the thing. Winston's a cool dude, and he's got a killer arm. But a guy that throws anywhere from 20 to 30, now he only threw 30 picks 1 year, right? But he's a guy who doesn't really stress ball security or and like turnovers get people fired, right? Turnovers ruin games, right? I don't want my rookie quarterback, Shawn, watching the guy stuff a ball, in for 18 to 22 interceptions a year. Like, I don't want him to get those bad habits. Does that make sense to you that a guy like Cousins, who doesn't throw as many picks, or Carr, I don't know, does it make sense to you that Winston might not be the best role model to bring in if he's consistently known as a turnover machine?
Yeah, I agree. And if we're going to do that route, here you draft a quarterback and then you try to pry away Marcus Mariota from Washington, because he's done a really great job with Jaden Daniels, knows how to mentor, knows all that great leadership there. So if that's what you're going to look at, then that's the route I'm looking to go. I'm going to pry Marcus Mariota away from Washington, and I'm going to draft the quarterback. But Cousins, I get it. Like, his age, I know the Achilles could be the thing, but you could also look at, is his age part of the reason decline? Who knows?
Yeah.
So I think it's a risk. So you got to decide, okay, are we going to take a risk on somebody and pay them that much money? The best thing is to let him just get cut, not trade for him, because I think Atlanta will cut him and let him go. I really do.
Cole's got a great point. Is like, you think Cousins can run the Dave's offense? Dave's likes his QB to run the ball. You know what, Cole? Great question. 2 schools of thought. Jones was here when they got here, right? Like, so he has had Allen and he has had Jones, very similar style running and height and so forth. So, it could be like a blessing in disguise. He got the Buffalo, right? And Jones is there. I mean, Allen's there. He gets to New York. Jones is there. Like, I don't know if he's against it, right? He did work with Mac Jones, and Mac Jones can't move, right? So I'm not really sure, Cole, but I would think, and you guys could jump in here, I would think that he would, if a guy like Cousins was available, and as Chris just alluded to, that it's a lot more affordable than people think, that he would work around what Cousins could do, or why bring him in? Why would you bring him in? Now, Mariota, as Shawn just mentioned, Mariota is definitely a lot more mobile. Carr is a lot more mobile. Wilson is a lot more mobile. Cousins is probably the least amount, but I don't see Russell Wilson running the ball or Carr running the ball either.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see one of these guys because, obviously the draft's in April. They're going to have to make a move with somebody worthwhile, that could actually step in.
Yeah, it's a great point. The Giants, at the end of the day, the offseason, they really just got to make some major dynamic, big-time moves if they really want to make a difference. That's it. Not just free agency, draft too. Like, you got to go for it somewhere along the line.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's put a bow on that because I got a question for you. Great job on this could happen. Roster spot. I want to ask you each. Name me a guy, Shawn, on the current roster that will not be here next year. I've heard people talk about the roster flipping at 50%. I've heard it at 35%. Give me an idea, Shawn. You can give me one, you can give me 2. Give me 1 or 2 guys that will not be on this roster, next year. By the way, give me somebody of note that's noteworthy. If it's the practice squad guys aren't going to really make a difference.
Yeah, I'm going to say Darius Slayton will not be here next year.
Okay. Reason?
I think it's time to move on. I think they're going to bring in a different vet. And I think he just
Higgins.
Yeah, that would be nice. So I think it's just time to kind of move on from him. And I think eventually they want to move on from as many as the old guys as possible, with the exception of like Dexter and AT, of course. So I think Slayton is the guy that is expendable at this point to not bring back. At least that's what I would do.
Yeah, I got you. So your feeling is Slayton. That's your offensive guy. You have a defensive guy?
Yeah, I think as far as defensive guys, I think Aziz might not come back, but I think it's because he's going to get more money somewhere else. Somebody's going to overpay for him.
That is probably very accurate. Chris, how about you? A guy you think won't be on the roster? If you can, give me an offensive guy and give me a defensive
Yeah.
guy.
After training camp with competition, I think they'll upgrade with somebody younger than Devin Singletary. Could be another free agent or a draft. So I think Devin Singletary they may upgrade there. Maybe Jason Pinnock. He had a down year, and then I believe this is going into his 4th year. And I'm thinking maybe getting out of training camp. Once again, he's under contract. They need to carry 90, but maybe getting out of training camp, he's one of those cuts where he gets beat out by another vet, or it would have to probably be a vet that came in, somebody with experience.
I'm going to address my man Peace says here, who are you going to play Slayton with? Hyatt hasn't happened yet. So you know what's interesting, Peace, is
and I think we said Hyatt last week, actually, one of us.
Yes.
We might have mentioned Hyatt.
Yeah, like 2 things with Hyatt is if you're good enough, you play. So we know he's talented, but whatever he does during practice, they don't see it, right? Like if you don't play in the game, practice is your game. So whatever he's doing in practice just is not giving them confidence enough to put him on the field and throw the ball to him. But Shawn alluded to this during our Christmas episode when I was doing King Krampus, and I said, "Who's on your Santa list? What's on your wish list?" And the first person Shawn said was Trey Smith and T. Higgins. And again, I'll say it. I'm going to keep saying it. The only way the New York Giants compete in 2025 is if they overpad this roster. Overpadding is going out and getting 2 guys at the same position. And in case one doesn't work out, the New York Giants are always like this. I've got a new center. We don't need another one. I've got a guard. We don't need another one. And then when they don't work out, we have a big hole you can ride a truck through. Like, enough of that. So if you keep Slayton, that's fine. But you got to bring in T. Higgins. Wan'Dale Robinson can't be your 2. Regardless of what anybody really thinks, like Wan'Dale Robinson, Hyatt cannot be your 2 or your 3. Like, so, I also don't want to hear there's not enough balls to go around because you cats want to draft Travis Hunter. So let's just be realistic, all right here. I don't know if I have one, guys. I would say Isaiah Simmons because, he just doesn't seem to fit anywhere again. Like that, or they just underuse him. Like I want to see him do well. And I keep asking why they don't use him just as a 3rd down pass rushing specialist. I don't get it. Like, I don't see him fitting here with Bowen coming back. Like, he just doesn't get on the field, whether he should or he shouldn't. I'm assuming with his speed, he should be able to produce somewhere. Like, whether it's in a blitz package, a NASCAR package, something, a deep safety.
He's got good ball skills. That's what I think he would probably do well.
The issue about Simmons, I find, is I don't think he has good field awareness. But I think he's got enough speed to be not a basher, like downhill, like a McFadden type. I'm sure he could probably get 6 or 7 sacks a year if you let him go. Because, I don't think Simmons is afraid of contact, where you see kind of Tibbs is not as physical. At least for the defense. On the offensive side, there's a bunch of dudes I'm sure you could come up with. Van Roten would probably be for my first thought that I can't, unless he's a pure depth piece, but I can't see Van Roten coming back, especially if I'm hoping they bring in 2 guards, 1 free agent and 1 draft. So, cool. But I like that. And you guys are Cold says, then he's a shit draft pick joke.
Well, he asked how can he get developed if he's not playing in games, and I said practice. He develop in practice. He's got to get better as a blocker. He's got to get better at going after the ball, being aggressive to the ball. That's where he's lacking. And Daboll, it was clear he placed an emphasis on blocking this year with every position. So he was a guy who was going to take longer to develop. He was a 3rd round pick that came in with more of a limited route tree than others. So the speed is what is there. So you figure out a way to get him in, utilize him more. And if he takes into year 3 to get better, so be it. Like I don't know why we always expect guys that are 3rd or 4th rounders to come in and make impacts right away. It just doesn't happen that way.
You know what it is, Shawn? I think we see at the receiver position, so many guys in middle rounds come right into the league and they do well. And we're not used to these receivers. Where years ago, it used to take time for receivers, but the game has changed so much towards the college game. You see a lot of these receivers pretty much hit the ground running coming out of college in a lot of cases, So if he's going into year 3, I mean, maybe he doesn't make it out of camp, right? He's on the roster, but maybe he doesn't make it out of camp with the competition.
And Hyatt had a ton of awards that he won. He had a 5 touchdown game one time. I mean, like
against Alabama, he's a Blitnikoff winner. Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot.
But there is, I will say again, I've sat in the stadium and watched his body language when he gets on the field and they don't throw him the ball. Like he's a powder. Like you know what I mean. I think I texted Chris or Shawn during the game. It was the play that Locke got knocked out at the back of the end zone. You guys remember that game? He got hit and he was kind of down. He was at the back of the end zone. He kind of got hit late, kind of a dirty hit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what game it was.
Washington? No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
Washington.
I think it was Washington. And Locke was down. Hyatt was in a pass route. And he literally, as Locke was down and they were paying attention to him and they were starting to line back up to call the play, he sauntered would be the word I could think of. he just lackadaisically walked across the field like I've never seen an NFL player. Like he literally just walked through the defense. The defense was setting up for the next play. They were looking at Cousins and they were looking at Locke trying to figure out if he was okay. And this guy just walking through the defense, blah, blah. I was like, dude, like it just screams, I don't want to be here. I don't give a crap. Wah, me. And I kind of just sat with me because I've never seen anybody do that before. Walk through the defense that's lined up. I think, you'd run off the field. So there could be just, he's not used to, not playing and he's used to getting what he wants. I don't know.
Yeah, he made comments last week. He made in the locker room, right?
Yep.
Oh,
well, what did he say, Shawn? Didn't he say, Shawn? Well, that how do you feel about Dable coming back? We'll see. Whatever, right?
We'll see, or if he was going to be back or something like that. Like if it's something like we'll see. So I think he's unhappy with his role. Like I know articles are out there about other people being unhappy with his role, which I don't. Other people being unhappy with their role, I don't think those other people are. I think Jalen Hyatt's upset with why he's not being used, and he may not know why he's not being used as much.
Great segue too, by the way. You guys got to stop listening to the nonsense, noise. Okay, Shane, Wan'Dale Robinson and Slayton both came out, said they wanted Dabe's back. Right? They wanted him back. Wan'Dale Robinson blew his knee out as a rookie, and Gabe stuck with him, gave him a chance, gave him an opportunity. He had 92 catches this year, right? I mean, it's a basic, very uncreative offense out of Dabe's, but Wan'Dale Robinson is not upset with his role. Stop reading in all that noise that you hear out there. The guy literally said he wanted him back. You know what I mean? Do you remember that? Chris, do you remember the play that everybody knew it was over for Jones? Do you remember the play? There's one. I know Shawn knows it. There's one specific play that sticks out.
I mean, there's one I'm thinking of. I don't know if it's the same one you're thinking of.
Go ahead. Which one is it?
It's the flea flicker.
Oh yeah, where he delayed and he couldn't get it. Yeah, he couldn't pull the handle on it. Yeah,
two guys wide open, and Wan'Dale jumped up and down.
Wan'Dale's running, jumping down the sideline, and he came off the field. Dave's went right up to him and patted him on the back and was like, "Great route." I mean, so it's off season. These guys, some of them, they're a little bit on the negative side. They're creating a bunch of noise for you folks. Got to stop listening to these people, man. They're just making noise up, just blah blah blah. So, I mean, I'm not putting any stock into it. All right, real quick, guys. I wanted to address this too. I'll let you guys jump in here. It's Shawn Jackson. Guys, if we're getting a bridge QB, I don't want Wentz because it's Jimmy G or Carr. Justin Fields is a young QB. Shouldn't be extremely expensive, and he knows he has something to prove. Seesaw with JW. Okay. I want you all three of you guys all two of you guys to jump in here. I'm going to tell you this real fast. Is one, Fields wants to start. He's not going to be a bridge. He wants to be a starter. He's a young guy. 2, if he comes to the Giants, it's his third team in 4 years. What does that tell you? Okay. You're telling him he's not good enough to start in these places. The minute Russell Wilson's ready to go, he starts, right? Like there's something else that's missing from Fields' game. He doesn't see the field very well. He's a phenomenal athlete, but there's something wrong with the fact that he would be on his third team. And he's going to start, and he doesn't want to be a bridge quarterback. And here's the thing. If he's not successful at a rookie, when he was a rookie, and he's not successful on his second team, what's he going to teach our quarterback?
And he just left Pittsburgh, who has no quarterback, and they're willing to part ways with him. And he doesn't work the receivers. His processing, if we're tired of Jones, Fields is kind of the same thing. His processing isn't the fastest either. And then we're going to be all frustrated with that again.
Yeah. I mean, Fields wants to, like I said, he wants to take off. He's a project. We don't need a project. So, and by the way, Shawn, it's a great point. Nobody's talking about, Jimmy G. Now, I'm gonna pass the baton here to Shawn to talk about Wentz, because he's got Shawn's got some good pointers on Wentz. But just in general, like, this isn't killing Fields, but he's going to be on his third team in 4 years. That's got to say something that all these coaches don't see it. They don't see it. It's not happening, right? And you think he's going to come here to be a bridge to another younger kid? And what's he going to teach a kid? How not to be successful?
If he comes here, Craig, to your point, he's the guy. There is no bridge. If
Exactly.
they were to get him, they're not going quarterback in the draft, in my opinion. That would just be, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, and by the way, you think Malik Neighbors is frustrated now. Wait till his quarterback's rushing for 1,000 yards. Malik Neighbors is going to go down. He's not going to be getting Neighbors 9 catches a game. I mean, it's just, and you could say it could happen, but it hasn't happened in the past. That's just the style of ball that he plays. I mean, even look how good Lamar has gotten. Look how mature Lamar Jackson's got, right? Like, he can throw the ball. He stays in the pocket, and then he can run. He reads a pretty good defense, right? He spreads the ball around to Andrews and Zay Flowers and these guys. Fields doesn't have that reputation, so I don't think it's a right fit. Shawn, tell me about Wentz.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say the other Shawn, great name, spelled it the right way. So love having another Shawn here jumping in. Listen, here's the thing about Wentz. Like, if you learn under Andy Reid, or you're back with Andy Reid and Kansas City Mahomes, I mean, a bad option. Maybe something can come of that. I would say this, and going back to Fields real quick, if he's going to be a bridge, he's going to be a bridge in the sense that he gets you through 1 year, and then you look the quarterback in the next class when supposedly that 26 class is going to be. So that means you have to deal with maybe being good or maybe not being good, and I don't think that's what the Giants are going to do. I don't think you can get away with that. So Wentz, I mean, again, backed up Mahomes, learn there. Being with Andy Reid, I think that can teach you a lot. So maybe got in, for 5 or 6 games, plays like the Kurt Warner role when Eli was here with Kurt, and can teach the guys some things. He understands, being good, being bad, all that there. So I think there's and I think he understands what it means to be a quarterback. Like, that's the biggest thing to me with whoever we get as the vet quarterback. They have to teach the young guy to be an NFL quarterback. And that's not talking about plays or making throws. That means how to lead the organization, how to be in meetings, how to do film study, being around the facility. Like, all of those things is what we need somebody come in and teaching our young quarterback, how to do. We have to be very careful with who the vet that we bring in, because they have to teach a quarterback. That's huge. And again, that's another reason why I'm pushing for Mariota, because I think he's done a great job with that with Fields. I don't know who else might be able to do that, but Mariota's my choice to be that backup quarterback, because I think that's huge. You have to have a vet backup quarterback. I mean, even Joe Flacco, I think, is a guy you could bring in and could teach our young quarterback how to be an NFL quarterback.
Be tough to ask Flacco to run anything close to Dave's offense. That's the thing.
No.
At least a guy like Mariota and Wentz both can scramble.
Yeah.
Right? Mariota, Wentz, both mobile quarterbacks. I mean, Flacco would be like, I'm not running that. I could just see
Yeah,
Flacco
no,
being like,
he's not. He's not. But as far as like that type of person who can teach how to like
Yeah.
do film study, be around a facility,
Sure.
be
a
an
leader.
NFL quarterback.
100%. You're breaking up a bit
Yeah.
there, Shawn, but I know where you're going.
Yeah.
All right, guys, look, we're gonna wrap this up. I got two things I want to ask you quickly. Do you find the playoffs, are creating like a disadvantage for teams because you have to wait for this guy and that guy, and certain rules put in there? Like, I feel like, we're at a disadvantage with all the rules they have in place about who can interview when and where. Chris, does this at all like bother you that this like we're not being more aggressive, like, because we can't be more aggressive because all the rules that are in place?
Well, they made a little better with the Zoom, right? A couple of years, before COVID, they weren't really doing these Zoom meetings. Now they're doing their Zoom meetings. They don't have to fly all around, so I guess that helps. But for the Giants, I don't know. We haven't gotten rid of anybody on the staff, so like right now, I don't know who we're waiting for really. But yeah, I guess other teams, right? The Saints, and that's a team that's out there that's still looking for a coach, and obviously the Jets are interviewing everybody, and then Ben Johnson's, he's in the middle of the playoffs and he's the hot coordinator. So yeah, I mean these teams, the combine, when the Super Bowl's over, the combine's a week later, and these guys are now putting their staff together. Plus they got to get to Indianapolis for the combine, so that's definitely a disadvantage for something like that.
Yeah. Shawn, you got a point on that?
Yeah, I mean, imagine when they go to the 17-game schedule that they're talking about. It's going to get even later and later because the Super Bowl is going to be on President's Day weekend. So I think they do have to make some adjustments now as the league has adjusted, the games have adjusted, the length of the season has adjusted. I get it because you want them focused on playing in the game and not be distracted, but these guys are professionals now. If they can't do both and, do an interview and get ready for a game, I don't see why that should be a days, especially if they're coordinators. But that's just me. Like, get your guy, let him talk to the guys. Maybe you restrict how many that they can have, during that time frame, so they're not talking with everybody and anybody. So that could be a compromise there.
Cool. Let's wrap it up with a 2-minute drill. You guys know rapid fire questions. Send it to you. You get it like, I don't know, you get like 10, 15 seconds per answer. I know Chris.
I'm gonna get like 5 seconds because Chris gets like 30 seconds, so I'm gonna get like 5
Craig,
seconds.
don't say you got 15 seconds. Craig says I get 15 seconds. I'm gonna use it to the max. The play clock. I'm gonna use it to the play clock.
Here we go. Before we wrap up the show, thanks for everybody for hanging out. NYGiantsRush.com. On Wednesdays, of course, we are now kicking off the draft show with Spartan Mike and the Truth. Those guys dig in. We all have a guest appearance that will be on there doing a certain segment. I've got tight ends. I think I might do quarterbacks. I'm not sure yet. I know. Chris, what are you doing? What category do you got?
I think I have the edge rushers.
You got edge rushers. How about you, Shawn? What do you got?
I got a couple different ones. I think I got O-line, and I got a couple other ones that I'm doing. I forget.
Okay. So make sure you check out Rush Hour. That is our Wednesday show, replacing, of course, the preview show. Spartan Mike and Truth be running that for the off season. So you'll see a lot of our mugs on Monday, and of course, Alex. All right, 2-minute drill. Let's go. Shawn, starting with you. Kafka, stay or go?
Stays.
Chris, Kafka, stay or go?
I think you end up staying.
Interesting. Chris, coming back to you, we know that the defensive tackle position has a big old hole in it. Is the defensive tackle position draftable, or are we signing someone?
I think it's going to be both. The draft is going to be deep in the defensive tackle spot, so I would say defensive tackle first. The big one will be in the draft.
Draft first.
Draft first. Yep.
Like you're expecting a guy to actually start from the draft.
I think so.
Chris, Shawn, defensive tackle, you want to sign a guy to start or draft a guy to start?
Draft a guy. There's especially that 3-4 DN, and there's some good ones in the draft. So that's what they got to get.
Yeah, I agree. Keep the linebackers free and so they can scrape, which didn't happen this year. Shawn, Wilson or Cousins?
I'm going to go Wilson.
Chris, Cousins or Carr?
Cousins.
Chris, is Gano safe?
No.
Shawn, is Gano safe?
He shouldn't be.
So neither one of you guys think that he should be the only kicker come camp?
Competition in camp.
No.
He's going to be 38,
Yeah.
39. You need he can't be kicking all day anyway at his age.
And he's
He
been
needs a
injured
break.
like the last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shawn, if Vrabel asks / takes Bowen for a defensive coordinator, but we did mention earlier in the show that isn't a shoo-in, right? Because of some other scenarios and the direction Vrabel's going in. But if Vrabel asks and takes Bowen, who's your DC in 2025?
I'm going to try to get somebody from the Lions. Don't know who that is, but somebody from the Lions staff.
Okay. Chris, same question. Vrabel takes Bowen. Who's the defensive coordinator in 2025?
I'll go with Lou Anarumo.
Interesting. Chris, Dave's the play caller in 2025 or someone else?
He's gonna die on the sword. Yes.
He is
If
going
he
to
dies, he's gonna do it his way.
There's a good chance that happens. Shawn, Dave's play caller next year, yes or no?
Yes, and he should.
Okay, fair enough. It is a boring offense.
Craig, don't let another coach determine his fate. If you're gonna go out, do it on your own terms.
Yep.
Only boring because they didn't score points.
Hey, you're over your 15 seconds. Step back. Shawn, if the Giants draft a cornerback, does he become CB1 or does he become CB2?
CB2, because I think they're going to sign a vet cornerback.
Which expands the question now, Chris. If the Giants, parlaying off of what Shawn just said, if the Giants draft a corner and now potentially sign a corner, who's CB1 and who's CB2? The free agent, the drafted player, or Banks?
No, the free agent, a vet free agent like a DJ Reed. He'll be the one. Somebody like that.
So then, Chris, who's 2?
Banks will be the 2 because I don't know if they're going to draft the corner. It could be 3rd round where a guy's not ready to start anyway, maybe. So I would say Banks goes into the 2.
2 great answers from you guys. Love that. All right.
Still hating on my man Flott.
Nobody's hating on your man Flott. He's just small.
Played well.
Yeah, I ate Crow. I thought he had a decent season, right? That would be basically the 2-minute drill, which we'll do every week. We'll wrap up with a couple rapid fire questions. Thanks for K-Mac and Cold and a bunch of you guys. Fire Pit Joe actually hit me up earlier last week or late last week about buying some T-shirts or sweatshirts or something like that. So want to pound out to Fire Pit Joe. Make sure you're following all these cats. Appreciate Pieces here today. We haven't seen Piece a couple weeks. He's probably been jamming. Make sure I give a shout out to Shawn, who's new. And then, of course, Spartan Mike was hanging out with us. Rob popped in with some good comments. I'm just scrolling through. There's a ton of you guys in. 159 people popped in through Twitter. I'm looking for – I just don't want to leave anybody out. I'm scrolling. I see Bradley, see Tuto, see Jay, see NY Giants 8044, and a couple of other guys. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. I see Miles is here. Of course, Daniel's always with us. You guys have been great. We're going to wrap this up, try to keep it sweet and short. You guys can go watch the game. Bang, pound it out. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.